Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I'm going to tell you about a housing association that doesn't want me to move. I was balancing a box of my late uncle's vinyl records on one hip and the front door key in my teeth when the blue and white SUV with Community Safety Patrol stenciled on the side screeched up my gravel driveway. Two people in matching windbreakers hopped out like they'd rehearsed it. One pointed a phone at me. The other barked, "You can't be here. This property is under enforcement." I spit the key into my palm. "It's my house." Windbreaker number 2 squinted at a clipboard. "You're not on the occupancy roster. Vacate or we call the police." "Call them," I said. "Bring snacks." That was the first 30 seconds of my new life in the mountains, and it was already weird. The property is a sliver of heaven. 2-story cedar siding, big wraparound deck, a view that looks like a desktop wallpaper. My Uncle Ray left it to me because, in his words, I was the only one who ever showed up when the roof leaked. He passed away in February, probate wrapped in June. The deed was mine, recorded and stamped, but apparently that didn't mean anything to the Homeowners Association of Maple Ridge Summit. Not their real name, because they don't deserve the free publicity. I slid the box onto the porch and fished out the official papers. Deed, trust, probate order, all filed with the county. I'm moving in. Today. Windbreaker 1 glanced at them like they were flyers for a yard sale. The association requires pre-occupancy approval and proof of residency continuity. The previous owner was evicted last fall for assessment delinquency. Therefore, no one can reoccupy until the board votes. Evicted? My uncle? No. Ray had been stubborn about a lot of things, but not bills. He had spreadsheets for his spreadsheets. Also, I'd driven him to pay his HOA dues in person during one of his chemo weeks because he said the online portal looked like a phishing scam made by a raccoon. He'd handed them a check in September. I remember because the board president, a woman named Darlene, again, not real name, but the vibe fits, made a snide remark about my city plates while she took it. "Show me the eviction notice," I said. Windbreaker 1 huffed. "That's confidential board business." "Then show it to the police when they get here. I'll wait." Windbreaker 2 muttered something about trespass and liability. They finally left, with plenty of dramatic finger-pointing. I figured the day's nonsense level had peaked. I was wrong. They came back, this time with 2 deputies and a neighbor with a GoPro strapped to his forehead. Let me pause here and clarify a few things, because hindsight makes motives look like neon signs. The HOA had been letting short-term rental money trickle into their own pockets for years. Uncle Ray never played along. He wouldn't rent his place out, he wouldn't pay special landscaping fees, and he absolutely would not sign a proxy over to anyone. The board had tried to strong-arm him by suspending pool privileges. He didn't swim. Citing him for improper mailbox paint. He used the color on the chip they gave him. And, apparently, fabricating an eviction. When he got sick, they smelled opportunity like coyotes smell trash night. Back to the porch, the deputies were professional if a little confused. I gave them the documents. I also gave them a printout of the state statute that basically says, if your name is on the deed, congratulations, that's your house. They took one look at the HOA reps, another at my paperwork, and told everyone to cool off. Darlene herself materialized after that, stepping out of a glossy black crossover, heels stabbing the gravel like she was angry at it. She announced, "If you truly inherited this home, then you also inherited the previous owner's removal. We don't permit squatters." I nearly laughed. "Are you saying my uncle was illegally removed?" She blinked. I saw it, the half-second of panic before the mask slid back on. "You wouldn't understand. There were legal proceedings." "Great," I said. "Hand me copies." The deputy cleared his throat in a way that translated to, "Lady, please stop talking before this turns into paperwork for me." He asked her to provide anything substantiating an eviction. She promised to email him. Spoiler, she never did. They couldn't get me out, so they pivoted. That evening, while I was setting up a mattress on the floor and trying to find the box with my phone charger, the HOA emailed a cease and desist letter claiming I was in violation of noise ordinances. My noise, a podcast quietly playing on my phone. Unapproved move-in, not a thing in state law, and unauthorized lighting. I'd turned on the porch light. They gave me 24 hours to vacate or they'd fine me $500 a day and place a lien on the property. Fine. If that's how they wanted to play, we could play. I've read more homeowner horror stories than I care to admit. Uncle Ray used to forward them to me with subject lines like, "You think I'm dramatic? Look at this." So when I say I knew the game, I mean I had a folder labeled HOA Martial Arts. First rule, document everything. Second rule, you can be polite and still be a brick wall. I set up a trail cam aimed at the front gate. I put a cheap doorbell camera on the porch, one of those battery-powered ones I'd grabbed on clearance. I noted every visitor in a little notebook and with a time-stamped video clip. I emailed the board back requesting their authority for any claim that I could not occupy the property I owned. Copies of all so-called eviction filings related to the property. A breakdown of alleged fines with dates and board meeting minutes. The HOA's CC and Rs, bylaws, and any amendments certified by the Secretary as current. By law in our state, I'm entitled to those within 10 business days. They sent me a PDF of the CC and Rs with the page numbers chopped off and no signatures. The rest, privileged. I fired off a certified letter citing the statute requiring open records. I gave them a deadline. I CC'd the county recorder, the state real estate division, and a lawyer friend of mine named Julian who owes me his life for talking him out of buying a timeshare in college. Okay, not his life, but at least 20 grand. While I waited, I started unpacking the house. The place felt both familiar and foreign. Ray was a pack rat, but an organized one. Every drawer had a label. Twine, gloves, receipts 2018 to 2019. In his office, I found the motherlode, a box labeled Maple Ridge Nonsense. Inside, there were printouts of emails, copies of certified letters, hand-annotated board minutes, even a flash drive with HOA meeting audio written in Sharpie. Ray had recorded the meetings. He wasn't supposed to, but he did. I guess he and I are cut from the same stubborn cloth. I listened to one while painting the guest room just to feel productive. Bless Bluetooth speakers. Around the 50-minute mark, a man's voice, Perry, the treasurer, said, "If we file the lien before he dies, it passes with the property. He can't wiggle out of it then." Darlene responded, "We have to create a record first, something enforceable. Maybe the landscaping fees?" And then someone joked, "Or we just claim he's evicted. He rarely leaves the mountain. Who's gonna check?" Laughter, tittering, someone clinking a glass. I paused the paint roller mid-stroke. I rewound to make sure I'd heard it right. I had. Should I have been surprised? Maybe not, but hearing them say the quiet part out loud had my blood fizzing. That audio came with a date, mid-October of last year. Uncle Ray was alive, getting chemo, and the board was plotting to lock him out. While he was fighting cancer, they were fighting him over mailbox paint. I wanted to drive down to the gate and blast the audio on loop. Instead, I emailed Julian the clip and the meeting minutes that corresponded. He wrote back in under 10 minutes. "Holy moly, this is conspiracy territory. Chain of custody, baby, back this up." So I backed it up. Flash drives, cloud, even burned a CD because I'm thorough and also dramatic. The next day, I woke up to a drone buzzing outside my bedroom window. Someone, gee, I wonder who, was flying a camera around the property. I threw on a sweatshirt, marched onto the deck, and waved. The drone zipped away. I followed it with binoculars, rays labeled "Birds Only, Don't Be Weird." It sailed over 3 houses and landed on Darlene's deck. I filmed that, because documentation is life. That afternoon, the HOA cut off the community well. I kid you not. The entire plateau runs off a shared system, with tanks up by the fire road and lines feeding each house. The pump malfunctioned, and only 3 homes lost water. Mine, the empty one next door, owned by an overseas investor, and the cabin where an elderly couple, the Hoppers, lived. The Hoppers are salt-of-the-earth types. Mr. Hopper is a retired postal worker who bakes bread for every potluck. Mrs. Hopper quilts for the local hospital. They had nothing to do with this, but the board's pettiness doesn't discriminate. I called the county health department and reported a shutoff without notice. They took it seriously. Mountain wells are regulated. When the inspector arrived, the HOA's maintenance guy stumbled through a story about a valve. The inspector looked at the log. No work order. He ordered immediate restoration and fines for the HOA if it wasn't done. I later learned the board tried to charge me a reconnect fee. I paid it, under protest, and then filed it as evidence. Julian found me a bulldog attorney named Ciara who loves property law the way some people love football. I met her on a Thursday, gave her the audio, the emails, the letters, the drone video, everything. She listened, eyes narrowing in focus. When the audio clip ended, she whistled. They recorded themselves admitting to a fraudulent lien scheme. They thought no one was recording, I said. She smiled in a way that made me glad she was on my side. We're going to have fun. Her plan was surgical. Send a demand letter to the HOA for full records, citing statutory penalties per day of non-compliance. File a petition in civil court to quiet title against any fraudulent liens and affirm my right to occupy. Report the board's actions to the State Attorney General's Consumer Division and the Real Estate Division for HOA oversight. Notify the IRS of any unreported rental income if we found evidence. Spoiler, we did. Offer the board a way out, resignations and reimbursement in exchange for not dragging them individually in front of a judge. If they refused, aim for personal liability by piercing the corporate veil due to fraud. But we weren't going to lead with the heavy hammer. First, we'd let them flail. The board responded to my certified demand with a threat. Your continued harassment will be forwarded to our counsel. They attached a Word doc that looked like it had been made in a hurry, claiming Ray had been in arrears for 3 consecutive quarters. I cross-referenced the dates with his receipts. They were lying. He'd paid every quarter, sometimes early. He even had the stubs with "Received by Darlene" written on them. Meanwhile, neighbors started picking sides. Some, like the Hoppers, brought over casseroles and whispered, "We've all been waiting for someone to stand up to them." Others glared from behind curtains. One guy, Alan, who owns a woodworking business and a very loud pickup, offered to build me a 6-foot fence, just to watch them try to say it's too high. Then there was a woman named Kiri who cornered me outside the mail shed to warn, "They'll start fining you for anything, even where you park your car." My cousin got a letter for leaving his garbage can out 2 hours too long. Case in point, I got a notice tacked to my door with actual tape, no envelope, saying I owed $1,200 for unapproved exterior color changes because I'd repainted the guest room. Inside, they were fining me for painting an interior wall. I scanned it and sent it to Ciara with a subject line. "Apparently my walls are community property now." She responded, "Great. Pattern of arbitrary enforcement." Around this time, the deputies came back, not for me, but for the board. Someone had called to report an aggressive dog on my porch. I don't have a dog, but I do have a motion-activated speaker that plays a bark when someone steps on the top stair. Thank you, Ray, for being paranoid in fun ways. The officer checked, saw no dog, shrugged, and left. The next day, I got a violation for harboring a dangerous animal. Evidence? A still frame from my own doorbell cam that they must have hacked by connecting to my Wi-Fi when I hadn't changed the default password yet. That creeped me out more than anything else so far. I changed the password, added WPA3, and set up a VLAN like it was a tech project. Then I printed the Digital Privacy Act section that forbids accessing someone's camera feed without consent, and tacked it to the community bulletin board with a bright sticky note. "Whoever streamed my porch, this is a crime." Let me switch gears to another thread, one that seemed unrelated but became crucial. 2 months before Uncle Ray died, he called me and said, "If something happens to me, check the blue envelope behind the freezer. Don't open it unless you have to." I never asked why. After he died, I looked and found an envelope with a list of numbers, a key, and a note. "If they try to take the house, call Dennis at Mountain Title." I called Dennis. He remembered Ray. "He told me there might be shenanigans," Dennis said. He put a hold instruction on record. Any transfer of the property must require a notarized affidavit by the owner. It's an extra precaution. It won't stop a lien, but it can slow down a sale. That hold was how I discovered the board had attempted to file a lien in November and again in January, but got bounced because of Ray's hold instruction. They'd tried a third time the week after he died, and it also failed. The county clerk flagged it and sent a notice to Ray, who was already gone, and to the HOA's address. They never told the board members individually, but someone knew. Someone on the board had tried to sneak a lien through a side door. That was a civil and potentially criminal issue. Ciara requested the recording ledger. The county clerk provided it gladly. Around day 15 of living at the house, I got my first official police visit where I was the complainant. I caught a board member, Perry, cutting through my backyard at midnight with bolt cutters. He claimed he was inspecting for fire hazards. I told the deputy I'd like a trespass warning issued. I had footage clear as day, night vision, but crisp. The deputy issued it. Perry huffed. The next morning, the board sent a notice accusing me of blocking emergency egress because I'd locked the side gate. We're talking about a waist-high picket gate that opens to a ravine. They argued that because the HOA's common maintenance path, their words, ran along that ridge, they had a right to access my yard 24/7. I reread the plat map. There was a utility easement, yes. It was 5 feet wide and specifically for underground lines and repairs. Bolt cutters at midnight weren't part of that. I put up a sign. Utility easement access requires 24-hour notice unless emergency. Trespassers will be reported. I was careful with the wording. Sierra filed the quiet title action. We also filed a temporary restraining order to stop the HOA from assessing or collecting any fines until the court ruled. The judge granted it, ex parte, pending a hearing. That froze their games for a fortnight. You'd think they'd relax. Instead, they ramped up the shenanigans. The community newsletter accused me of bringing disharmony. Someone slipped a flyer into my mailbox, illegal by the way, with a photoshopped picture of me holding a sign that said, "Down with Community." It looked like a high school project. I didn't care about the smear. I cared that they were stupid enough to leave metadata on the file. My neighbor Alan is handy with digital forensics. He traced the original to Perry's work computer based on a watermark. We added that to the file. Then came the day the state investigator called. "We received multiple complaints about Maple Ridge Summit," she said. "Are you willing to provide evidence?" I nearly offered to build a bonfire of paperwork. She asked for specific things: audio, minutes, financial records if I had them. I didn't have the HOA books, but Sierra had subpoenaed them. The treasurer stalled. The judge ordered them to produce within 5 days. They produced a ledger. It was a mess. Numbers didn't add up. There were withdrawals labeled special projects with no receipts. There were consulting fees paid to Darlene's cousin. And there were deposits that looked a lot like cash from short-term rentals that were supposed to be banned by the CC&Rs, but clearly were happening. I ran one more thread in parallel, helping the Hoppers. While I was fighting my war, their roof leaked. The HOA denied their request for an emergency assessment because funds were low. Meanwhile, Perry had new patio furniture delivered, and the clubhouse got a fancy espresso machine. I crowdsourced among sympathetic neighbors, and we got the Hoppers a new roof through a church charity. The HOA tried to fine them for unauthorized exterior alteration. I went nuclear in the group email list, which Darlene had accidentally CC'd me on once and I'd quietly saved. I didn't curse. I just laid out facts. We are a community. The Hoppers have lived here 17 years. The board denied them help while buying an espresso machine. Here is the invoice. Here is the donation receipt. If you find them, I will testify about this pattern at the hearing. People started replying all. The quiet ones found their keyboards. Suddenly, the board was not so confident. Half their power relied on everyone being too busy or scared to push back. Once folks smelled blood, they piled on. The hearing day arrived on a Tuesday. Darlene swept in with a lawyer I recognized from billboards on the highway. His main gig is car accidents, not HOA law. Perry had a manila folder stuffed with papers. Sierra wore a navy suit that could cut glass and heels that made her exactly eye level with the judge. I sat behind her with my flash drives, my printouts, my water bottle, and my poker face. The judge opened with, "We are here on a motion to quiet title and a temporary restraining order regarding HOA assessments. I have read the filings. Counsel, proceed." Sierra spoke plainly. "My client inherited this property. The HOA is attempting to fabricate a debt and evict her without due process. We have evidence of a conspiracy among board members to place fraudulent liens." She played the clip. The courtroom went silent except for Perry's audible gulp. Darlene's attorney objected on grounds of chain of custody and state wiretap laws. Sierra countered, "This was a public meeting of a non-profit corporation, not a private conversation. There is no expectation of privacy." The judge overruled. We methodically walked through each of their bogus fines. Interior paint? Not governed. Noise? No evidence. Lighting? Single porch bulb within lumen's limit. Late dues? Receipts shown? Eviction? No court order, no sheriff's writ, no notice. The judge looked at Darlene. "Did you or did you not file an eviction petition in any court?" She hedged. The judge pressed. Finally, she admitted, "We believed we had authority under our bylaws." "Authority to evict someone from their home without a court order?" the judge asked. Silence. The judge ruled that the HOA was enjoined from enforcing any fines or assessments against me until further order, and that they must produce full minutes and financial records. He also said any attempts to interfere with my occupancy would be considered contempt. I almost cheered but settled for a deep breath. We weren't done, but the momentum shifted. After court, a board member named Cora approached me in the hallway, eyes bright with fear. "I didn't know they were doing this," she whispered. "They told me we were just trying to collect dues." "Then resign," I said, "and tell the truth." She did. Her resignation letter mentioned ethical concerns. That letter ended up in the investigator's file. That night, I finally slept without waking up to check the cameras. I should have known better. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Doorbell alert. A shadow figure darted by the porch, reached for the doorknob, then ran when the floodlight kicked on. The next morning, I found a note pinned to the gate. Leave while you can. Real original. I filed a police report because patterns matter. By the end of week 4, Ciara had drafted a complaint for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and civil conspiracy against the HOA and the board members individually. Before filing, we offered a settlement. Step down, reimburse me for costs, repay misused funds to the HOA, and agree to a monitored election overseen by a neutral third party. They had 72 hours. They used all 72, then declined with a smug letter saying we'd get laughed out of court. Okay then, court it is. I didn't tell them we'd already looped in the IRS tip line with all that consulting fee and rental income data, or that the state investigator had quietly opened a case, or that the Hopper's granddaughter was a reporter for a major local station and she'd been digging. My job was to stay quiet, keep the cameras rolling, and keep every receipt, literal and metaphorical. Meanwhile, life in the house blossomed. I found a dusty mandolin in the closet and taught myself 3 chords. Alan put up a temporary privacy screen along the deck to keep drones out of sight lines. The Hoppers brought over fresh bread. Kiri turned out to be a wealth of gossip and also a paralegal, which meant she knew how to organize documents better than anyone. We formed an unofficial committee. Neighbors who have had enough. We didn't break rules, we just read them better than the board did. One afternoon, Mrs. Hopper mentioned something offhand that made my ears ring. You know, there used to be 7 people on the board, not 5. 2 quit after that lawsuit about the pool money. What lawsuit? I asked. Oh, years back, someone sued because the funds went missing. They settled. Settlements show up in records. Ciara pulled it. The HOA had lost, paid damages, and promised to tighten financial controls. They'd failed. That pattern would look great in front of a judge. On Friday, a certified letter arrived for me from the HOA's lawyer. It said they were scheduling a disciplinary hearing for me for conduct unbecoming a member, whatever that means. They cited harassment, defamation, and creating a hostile environment. I ignored it. The restraining order meant they couldn't fine me or take action. If they wanted to discipline me, they could do it in front of a judge. Saturday morning, I walked to the community center to drop off a stack of public records request forms for the state investigator. As I passed the notice board, a new flyer caught my eye. Special meeting to remove board members. Petition achieved 27 signatures. That was half the neighborhood. I didn't start it. The Hoppers did, along with Kiri and Alan. It was happening in 2 weeks. Darlene posted a counter flyer. Petition is invalid. Only homeowners in good standing may vote. I saw 3 people rip that down in under an hour. The night before the special meeting, the board tried one more stunt. They locked the community center and claimed a plumbing emergency. We met on my deck instead. 50-something people crammed together, chairs borrowed from everywhere. I had speakers, a mic, and Ciara on speed dial. We followed the bylaws step by step because we had them. Someone had slipped me the real ones, not the doctored PDF. Quorum? Achieved. Motion to remove? Seconded. Vote by secret ballot done with index cards and a locked shoebox. Kiri counted. Majority voted to remove Darlene and Perry. 2 others resigned in protest. Cora, who'd already quit, came to watch and clapped softly. We elected an interim board, Kiri, Alan, Mr. Hopper, and 2 others with reputations for fairness. They pledged to audit the books and comply with the law. We delivered the results to the county the next morning because corporate officers have to be updated. The old board cried foul. The new board hired a licensed community manager to make sure we did it right. We also asked the court to recognize the new board in the ongoing suit. The judge scheduled a hearing. The fallout was delicious but also exhausting. Darlene sent threatening emails. Perry disappeared for a week. The IRS sent an acknowledgement letter. The state investigator requested interviews. The local reporter knocked on my door and asked, "Can I record?" I said yes, on one condition. She blur the house number. She did. The story aired on a Tuesday night. The headline was something like, "Mountain HOA accused of fraud and harassment." They interviewed the Hoppers. Mr. Hopper said, "We just want to live in peace and fix our roof. America loves the Hoppers." Within 4 days, 3 more people in the subdivision came forward with tales of fines for garden gnomes and unapproved bird feeders. The pattern grew. The AG's office sent a stern letter to the HOA. Preserve all documents. Destruction is a crime. On Thursday, Perry's woodworking shop got an unexpected visit from the state tax board. Seems someone hadn't been charging sales tax on custom orders. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe when you play dirty, you leave tracks everywhere. I still had to live in that house. Drama doesn't cook dinner. I painted walls, restained the deck, found Ray's old hunting jacket with a wad of cash in the pocket, which I logged and deposited because I wasn't going to give anyone ammunition, and cried sometimes because grief sneaks up when you're labeling file folders. One evening, sunset bleeding over the ridge, I was on the deck with tea when my phone buzzed. Ciara, settlement offer in. You'll like it. The old board, through council, would resign, reimburse my $8,432.19, repay the Hoppers roof fund, and submit to an independent audit. They wanted my personal claims dropped. No confidentiality. I told Ciara we'd take it if the state didn't object, but we'd keep the fraud claim against the corporation so a judge could order oversight. The AG didn't block it. We signed, the judge approved, the new board took over, audit done. The HOA's ridiculous espresso machine sold for $450. Special assessments rolled back, old fines nullified, meetings shifted to dog park plans and wildfire drills. Darlene listed her house. Perry slipped away under rumor clouds of back taxes. The state investigator sent a thank you and a consent decree mandating annual training. Ciara and I recorded the quiet title. I framed the stamped copy opposite Ray's favorite valley photo. I tap it when I pass, like a ritual. Ray would have loved the end, not the dying, but the stubborn neighbors tossing out petty tyrants. No one went to prison, but power, money, and reputations evaporated. Darlene can't run a bake sale without someone checking receipts. Perry's learning tax law the hard way. Maple Ridge finally acts like a community, not a kingdom. 2 weeks later, a gray sedan paused at my no trespassing sign. A rumpled suit. Brent, representing an interested heir. I nearly laughed. My cousin once removed Talia, the one who borrowed $3,000 from Ray, wanted a slice, claiming Ray lacked capacity. Ciara rolled her eyes. We prepped notarized docs, medical records, and a video Ray recorded. If you're watching this because someone's arguing, shut it down. Brent folded at mediation. Fire out. The audit unearthed almost $30,000 in miscellaneous maintenance with no receipts and a $12,500 consultant retainer to a Shell LLC tied to Perry's girlfriend. We gift wrapped that for the state. The AG tapped Kiri to spearhead compliance training. Wildfire season flared. We cleared brush, fixed the fire road gate, and Boone, the volunteer captain, gave us an A-. The minus? Lumber Perry promised to haul years ago. We hauled it, catharsis. Ciara won attorney's fees, partial but enough. Principal satisfied. You shouldn't need deep pockets to defend your deed. In Ray's Maple Ridge nonsense box, I found his promises they made list. I turned it into a whiteboard. Promises kept, promises pending. Within a month, potholes were patched, the budget posted, the creepy swing set replaced. Mrs. Hopper added smiley stickers because morale matters. Drones resurfaced, an RF detector traced them to Perry's empty house. Deputy lecture, nephew apology, drones grounded. The IRS demanded 5 years of 1,099 S. None existed. Mina, our spreadsheet sorcerer, wrangled it, begged abatement, and mostly won. Meanwhile, I started dating Rowan, a wildlife biologist I nearly ran over on a fire road. First date, me holding a flashlight for a screech owl banding. Second, coffee on my deck, owl vertebrae facts included. He spotted algae blooms at the pond. We planted natives and accidentally killed the girlfriend's landscaping grift. Winter slammed in. Generator serviced, water steady, teenagers sled-delivered wood to elders. Lights twinkled on the bulletin board. Darlene tried to void the special meeting. The judge denied it without a hearing. Kiri taped that order inside the clubhouse bathroom stall. Petty? Perfect. By summer, the judge signed off on compliance. Darlene tried to reinvent herself elsewhere. They Googled. Denied. The Hoppers finally vacationed. We paid their cat sitter. Lesson learned. A deed is ownership. A spine is possession. Certified letters beat shouting. Neighbors just need a flashlight and a job. I still check cameras. For bears now. And keep receipts. Newcomers get the CC and Rs and a coupon for Hopper bread. I once thought I hit gold in the garden. Just an ammo can with Ray's survival kit and a note. If you find this, you're probably doing yard work. Good. Keep going. I kept the note by the quiet title order. There's joy in turning on a porch light that breaks no rule and finding your key beneath it. Ask me who gave me permission. The county, the court, and the Constitution. They said I couldn't live here. Big mistake. Friends, thank you. See you soon.